Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. This is one of Wild Apricot's monthly expert webinars, and today we're honored to have Joe Waters on with us. And Joe is a top expert when it comes to how organizations can raise funds, and of course, it's those funds that keep us all going. So I'm glad Joe is here with us to share how you can make next year 2018, get used to that, 2018, make that your best year yet. And we'll bring Joe on very shortly. In the meantime, let me introduce myself. So there is my face on the left of your screen. My name is Donald Cowper. I'm here at Wild Apricot on the content team. And beside me is my colleague Rano, and he'll be on chat to help you with any technical issues you might have. So during the webinar, feel free to ask any questions to us or to Joe, of course. And to do that, you can use the chat box. And before moving on, I want to make a couple of quick reminders. There we go. Yes, we are recording this webinar. Lots of people ask that. We do record our webinars. We'll send you an email with a link to the recording in the next couple of days. Please watch out for that as well. If you collect CE credits, I have good news for you. You can get one of them for attending this live webinar. So there you go. And before moving on and introducing Joe, bringing him on in a couple of minutes, let me just briefly say that today's webinar is being brought to you by Wild Apricot. I know that many of our customers are here with us today, so hello and a big welcome back to Wild Apricot. But we also get new people whenever we do a webinar, people who aren't familiar with Wild Apricot, so I welcome you as well. And for those of you who don't know, very briefly, I'll let you know that Wild Apricot is membership management software. It's actually an all-in-one solution for anyone running a membership organization. And that's because you can manage your member and contact database, you can run your events, build your website, process all your payments, and much more. And many of our customers consider it a lifesaver because it saves them hours a day in administrative tasks, freeing them up to focus on fulfilling their organization's mission. And we're quite thrilled with what many of our clients have been able to accomplish. We've watched a lot of them grow since we started. We started 11 years ago, and they've watched us grow too. And thanks to our customers, we've been ranked, there you see it, as the #1 rated membership management software solution on the market for the last 5 years. We're really proud of that, of course, here at Wild Apricot, helping people with great software, but we are also a leading provider of free educational content, which you'll find on our blog and in webinars like today's. So if any of you happen to have any questions about Wild Apricot, whether you're an existing customer or new to us, we're happy to answer them, but we'll do that at the end of the webinar. We'll stick around. You're all free to stick around if you're able to do that. So now, let's bring on Joe Waters. And there's Joe, his face at least on the screen. And I'll let Joe tell you more about who he is and his expertise. So without further ado, Joe, welcome. I see that you've already grabbed the presentation control, which is great. It's wonderful to have you with us today. And I really, really want to thank you for all the things that you've done in preparation for today, for being here this afternoon and sharing advice with our audience. Thanks so much. You've got the presentation. I'll mute myself. Thanks, Joe.
Great. Thanks a lot, Donald. And thanks to Wild Apricot for having me here today. I've been working with them for a number of years and have really enjoyed it. They have those funny Canadian accents, but they are nonetheless great people who I've really enjoyed working with and dealing with. And looking forward to doing this presentation. When I was first asked to do this too, I found it to be a great challenge to think about what types of tech tools and skills you're going to need next year to succeed. And as you can see from my first slide, I overdid myself. It's no longer 10 tech tools and skills you need to succeed in 2018, but 16 of them I couldn't stop myself. Donald had to stop me from adding any more skills or tools. So we've got a really full agenda here today. And I think you're going to enjoy this presentation. And I know I'm going to enjoy talking about it. One of the things I wanted to mention first is I just wanted to mention a little bit about me and who I am. I'm the founder of a website and blog called Selfish Giving. I've actually been writing Selfish Giving since 2004. Back in 2004, that didn't seem like a long time in terms of being a blogger. I actually felt like I was a late arrival to the scene. But now when I tell people I've been doing this since 2004, they were like, wow, that's been a long time blogging. And I certainly have at this point. And the main focus of my business is helping nonprofits and businesses create win-win partnerships. And it's a really exciting, growing area. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about working with businesses today, but I've got a bunch of other things for you. I also host a show called Cause Talk Radio, which is definitely worth checking out. And I think Selfish Giving and Cause Talk Radio are two great resources for you, because what you'll find during my presentation is a lot of the things that I'm talking about are things that I've written about before or things I've discussed on the radio show. So when I can refer to something on my site, I definitely think you should go and check it out and read more. And one of the things I really encourage people to do is to just write keywords and phrases down as I talk today, and go to the search bar on my blog and type that in and see if you can find some more information. And of course, if you need any additional information or you have any questions that are not answered today, I've put my email address there, joe@selfishgiving.com. You should also be warned too that I am from Boston, so that means I don't pronounce my R's. I've really been trying hard to pronounce my R's today, but it's just not going to stick. So you're going to have to live without those R's in words like park or Harvard or any of the other words that have an R at the end. Three things I wanted to mention in terms of connecting with me. You can certainly connect with me on Twitter @JoeWaters. You can find me on Facebook, personal profile there that you can connect with me. And I'm also involved on Pinterest, which I'll be talking about today as a tool that you folks should be using with some of the work you've been doing. But those are three areas that you can connect with me and talk to me on a regular basis on any of the things that I'm talking about today. So what I want to talk about today is I'm talking about skills and I'm talking about tools. So what I came up with is I came up with about 6 skills that I want to focus on today. And from that, I came up with 10 tools that I think are going to be really important to you. Now, I have to admit, not all of these are tech tools, but they certainly are tools that will help you accomplish the skills that I'm talking about today. And the first thing that I want to talk about in terms of skills that you are going to need or things that you should be focusing on for 2018 is focusing on businesses. And I feel like this is a really important area and a great opportunity for organizations, whether you're a nonprofit or a membership organization or what have you. The challenge with working on businesses is a lot of nonprofits look at businesses and say, Joe, it's great to work with companies, but at the end of the day, it's a small piece of the pie. In general, nonprofits only raise about 6% of their funds from businesses, whereas the majority of the money they raise, right, comes from individuals. But what I want to argue today is I want to argue that businesses are going to play a much bigger role in helping nonprofits and supporting nonprofits and in raising money for nonprofits. And it's very important for nonprofits to get on that train now of supporting businesses. And the reason why businesses are going to be so important is for what I call the 4 M's. And the first M is motivation. Businesses are more motivated than ever to work with nonprofits. You know, years ago when I started in this field and I was working with businesses and raising money, you know, they went through this kind of continuum of change where, you know, a lot of businesses were denying that that there was a problem or that they should be involved in the problem or they were just going to throw money in the problem. But one of the things that businesses really realize now is that working with nonprofits is an opportunity to make and save money. I think it's so funny that, 20 years ago, I had to go out and explain to people what cause marketing is, which is a partnership between a nonprofit and a for-profit for mutual profit. I don't have to do that anymore, because cause or purpose, some people call purpose the sixth P, that people need to focus on. But purpose has become a really important part of the marketing mix for businesses. So one of the important reasons that businesses are involving nonprofits these days is because of all the millennial workers that they have. And this is the second M. And another good reason, not only are they involved and want to get involved with you because they have so many millennials, but I know many organizations, they call me, they email me, they hit me up on Twitter, and they say, Joe, we need to focus on a younger audience. We need to focus on more millennials. And businesses are a great place to target millennials. They have younger workforces that can become a really big part of your organization in your fundraising strategy. So companies have the motivation and they have the audience, especially the millennials, that you're going to want to tap into. And one of the things that we certainly know about businesses is that businesses have the marketing, right? Businesses know how to get people to do things, whether it's in mobile technology or some of the things that we're seeing come online around Internet of Things, like the Bounty dot thing that they have from Amazon. Even Whirlpool has a wash machine now that you can run through your smartphone, and every time you use that smartphone to run your wash machine, they donate to Habitat for Humanity. So businesses are motivated, they have a younger audience, but they also have the marketing. They know how to get people to do things. And in many instances, they're stronger at this than nonprofits. So we want to lean on businesses to help us do this. And another thing that's really important too with businesses, and I think this will strike home, especially with a lot of nonprofits out there, is that businesses have the money, that there is a lot of individual wealth in businesses. And I always think of this great example. Of course, I'm from the great state of Massachusetts, and one of the great businesses that we have south of our border in Rhode Island is a company called Ocean State Job Lots. And they have done a fantastic job fundraising for organizations in the greater Boston area. And Mark Perlman, the owner that you see there on the left, he's actually been very generous with the organization too. So in addition to raising hundreds of thousands of dollars every year in his stores for organizations in the greater Boston area, he has also been very personally generous to these organizations too. So what you'll find in working with businesses is that not only do you get access to the right types of people, but you're getting access to a lucrative audience that can make a big difference for your organization. So when you're thinking, or your boss says to you, why are we focusing more on businesses? You want to be able to tell them because of the motivation, because of the millennials, because of the marketing, and because of the money there. One of the things I wanted to share with you in terms of working with businesses is, what is your ideal prospect that you should be looking for a business? And you'll see some of the rationale behind this in future slides. But in general, we're looking for businesses that are generally business to consumer. So we want to work with restaurants, department stores, retailers, bakeries, coffee shops. And one of the things I would really encourage you to do for your ideal prospect is look at mid-sized companies that your organization may be able to raise money for. And these companies are privately owned. They have a founder or owner who runs the organization. And any of you who have worked with these people know that these owners, these founders, have a lot of discretion in terms of what they can do and how they can support your organization. Another good thing is mid-sized organizations haven't been picked over by the big charities, right? Or the big associations. So there's more of an opportunity there. Another thing that you're going to be looking for is, because we're focused on business to consumer, you want more locations, more foot traffic, bigger organizations that have lots of stores and are busy, like shopping malls and retailers and coffee shops and all those different things. One of the things that really helps too, and I want to encourage you for an ideal prospect for a business, is look for existing businesses that support causes. Do not be dissuaded just because they're are already working with 1, 2, or even 3 causes. My experience has been is that good businesses that get cause marketing and working with nonprofits, they are willing to work with multiple nonprofits. And, a great example of this is GameStop. You probably have been, if you bought a video game or a gaming system, you might have been into a GameStop. During the course of the year, they support 5 different organizations, from, No Kid Hungry to St. Jude's to Autism Speaks. And, so just as you think and you look at that and say, well, gee, how could they add another organization? Well, they're always adding organizations that they can raise money for. And one of the things I would really encourage you to is, looking for businesses that kind of align with your charity. So if you're a food bank, you can work with restaurants. But one of the things I also want to encourage you to is, as you research companies, always be looking for those people that have some type of background that may resonate with your organization. I used to work for a safety net hospital, and that's a hospital that serves the poor population in a community. And one of the things that we always looked for, despite what type of business would connect with us, is we used to look for something called bootstrappers. And these were people that had grown up poor, and they had probably taken advantage of free health services. So they knew that they would support the type of work that we were doing at this safety net hospital I was working with. So this is really the ideal prospect that you're looking for. Now, there are many variations to this, but you'll see in a minute that the suggestion I have is really along the line of these B2C organizations. Now, when I say mid-size companies, I'm talking about companies that you may know in your area, but I don't know in mine. If you're not in New England, you probably haven't heard of Ocean State Job Lots. Just as if you're in Ohio right now and you have a store, a chain of stores out there called Mark's Discount Stores. There's an R in that word, folks. That's a similar thing. It's companies that are indigenous to a particular area. So when you're looking for companies to work with and to fundraise from, you want to identify with these mid-sized companies. Another tremendous opportunity for businesses for you to work with are national franchise organizations. And the truth is a lot of franchises have regional offices. Like, for example, Jersey Mike's is a sub shop chain. They have about 1,500 stores. Unfortunately, we don't have many here in the Massachusetts area, but you may have them in your area. Every March, they do a month of giving program. And the owners of the Jersey Mike stores, the franchise owners of the stores, actually pick this company, pick the nonprofits that they donate to with these dollars, including at the end of March, the very last day of March, they donate all the sales, not just the profit, but all the sales from that last day of March to good causes. And I think last year they raised like $8 million. So you may look at a chain like that and say, well, it's a big national chain. How do I work with them? Well, if they're franchised, there may be a good opportunity for you to do that. And another thing that you should always remember too is national businesses do act locally. This isn't the case with every national business out there, because some national businesses only do national programs. But you don't know until you ask. I know here in Massachusetts, we have about 26 Walmart stores. And one of the things that we discovered is that they did work locally with organizations. We also found out something important too, is that each Walmart store had a $2,000 slush fund that nonprofit organizations could tap into. And we went around all of Massachusetts and collect that $2,000 from 26 different stores. So again, you don't know with national businesses until you ask. Now, when we think about working with companies, one of the things I want you to keep in mind is I want you to think of your companies as these prospecting circles, I call them. And prospecting circles are a way of thinking about who are the best prospects. Now, I know many of you on the line today probably haven't worked with many businesses, but what I want to assure you is you all probably have a business that you're working with now. Maybe they're a vendor, maybe a board member knows a business that you could work with, or maybe you have an individual contributor that runs a business. Those are the people in the bullseye, or what I call supporters. And these people are the ones that you want to start with, because they are your very best prospects. So when you think about companies to work with, I don't want you to get on the phone after this call and start cold calling companies. I want you to think about the companies that you're already working with before you work your way out to people that maybe know you but don't support you, or people that you don't know at all. A lot of times when it comes to corporate partnerships, and this is important, folks, I tell people they're not discovered, they're detected. They're already there. You just have to realize or understand how to flip the switch to start working with those people. Now, when I talk about the types of fundraisers that would be useful for businesses, I try to focus on something what I call the cause marketing matrix. And in the upper right-hand corner here, a listing of all the different strategies that I think work best with these groups. Coupon books, roundup programs, donation boxes. Now keep in mind, if you have questions about these things, you can type into the search bar at selfishgiving.com on my blog and find articles on all these different programs. But definitely take a look at this. And these are what I call the easiest and the most lucrative programs. As you can see, if you're doing a roundup program, those programs work best with whom? They work best with business to consumer businesses, right? We're talking about retailers and restaurants and coffee shops and department stores and those types of people. That's where you can raise the most money. And just so you have a good start in terms of different types of businesses you could think about working with on these types of programs, C-stores, convenience stores are a huge growth area with businesses. As a matter of fact, a lot of people think the future of business is in these 6,000 to 10,000 square foot stores that sell very specific items. Frozen yogurt places are a great place. There's a chain in California called Menchie's that raises hundreds of thousands of dollars for muscular dystrophy. Quick lubes like Meineke, Jiffy Lube, Valvoline Instant Oil Change. I raised $40,000 in just a couple of weeks with Valvoline Instant Oil Change, which you wouldn't think because it's a big national change, but I worked with them regionally. Car washes can raise money. Garden centers. There's a great chain of garden centers in Ohio called Petiti's that has raised over $100,000 for Cleveland Clinic. Discount retailers, pancake houses, hardware stores. So these are some of the businesses that you should be thinking about that you can target for the types of programs that I mentioned. Now, one of the things I know you're thinking about is, wait a minute, Joe, can you go back to that matrix so you can show me just exactly what types of programs I can do with these types of businesses? I have something better for you, and I've got you covered on this, okay? Here's a tool alert, all right? So this is one of the 10 tools that we're going to be talking about today is fundraising with businesses. This is the last book I wrote. I am not selling it to you. I am giving it away to you. I will send you an electronic version. All you need to do is email me at joe@selfishgiving.com or go to selfishgiving.com. You'll see a drop-down box, and you can put in your email address for my weekly newsletter, and you'll get the book, and I'll send that to you. Now, one of the things I want to mention about the book, if you are listening to this on a recorded line, on a replay of this, I am sorry, but we're not going to pass along the book to you. We are only giving the book to people who are live and on the show today and listening to this as I'm talking about it. So what's today? I think today's December 19th. So that's the date that we'll be looking for. So anyone who signs up for my newsletter or sends me an email today with their email, I will send you in a free electronic version of my book. And just as the cover says, it's 40 strategies that you can use with businesses. So this will be a tremendous resource to you for understanding how to work more effectively with businesses. But one of the things I want to emphasize, and you don't have to even, put your email in to get the book, you can go to my Pinterest boards. Here's another tool alert for you. A great place to learn about the different types of programs you can do with businesses. I have over 4,000 pins curated by type of campaign. You can see them there. Text to give campaigns, purchase triggered donations, cause products. I have all these boards there that you can look at, and you can see examples of all the types of fundraisers. And keep in mind too, all these boards coordinate with the chapters in my book too. So if I talk about donation boxes and you want to see lots of examples of donation boxes, I think I have over 75 different pins of donation boxes. So this is a great tool that you can tap into. Pinterest is a great tool anyways. I'm sure some of you use it for shopping and stuff like that, but it's also a great place to curate information. And that's exactly what I've done here. Finally, one of the things I want to mention about raising money with businesses, even if you don't feel you have the capacity to raise money with businesses with some of the strategies I've talked about today, one of the easiest things you can do is start targeting businesses for matching gifts, right? You probably have an event, people are giving you money. Are you asking these people, who do you work for, and do you have a matching gift program? 65% of Fortune 500 companies have a matching gift program, and $15 million of individuals work for companies with matching gifts program. But because nonprofits don't take advantage of it, they're losing $4 to $7 billion a year. So another, in my final tool alert for this first point here, is to go to a site called Double the Donations. These are completely free resources. Go to the resource tab that I've highlighted here, and you've got downloadable resources, matching gift basics, and the top matching gifts companies. And this is a great place to review that information and to learn more about matching gifts. So what I would argue is, if you come out of anything with this first point, is that you need to do a better job with matching gifts. It is just money that is waited to be collected from companies. So that's our first point. That's a long point, and I indulge myself a little bit because I focus on businesses as part of my work. But the second point that I want to get into that I think is really important, and I think this is a must-have skill for 2018, is you must act like a publisher in 2018. And there's a couple good reasons for this. On the left-hand side, you see a picture of a printing press. That's actually the printing presses at the Boston Globe here in Boston. In 1993, I believe it was, the Boston Globe sold to the New York Times for $1.1 billion. 3 years ago, the John Henry, who also owns the Boston Red Sox, bought it back for $70 million. During that time, it had lost 95% of its value, like most newspapers. What was it? I just saw, what was it? The New York, I think it's the New York Post. The gentleman bought it in 1994 for $36 million, and he just sold it for $1. Okay. And the reason why these don't have as much value as they used to is because we all have the same tools now. We all have, because of technology, because of mobile, because of social media, we all have the ability to be a publisher now. And one of the things I think is really important to remind people about communications now is that brands used to own mass media, but now the masses are the media. Think about that. Think about anyone with an Instagram page or a Facebook page, a Twitter profile. These people have the ability to communicate to vast audiences. And what we're seeing businesses do is they want to turn these people on to their brands. And what we need to get smart about as nonprofits is turning our supporters, our individuals with these publishing assets and get them talking about the things that we're doing. It's just so important, folks. And, you know, one of the things I want to emphasize too is I know some of you may be thinking like, what? Joe, I got to do marketing, I'm doing fundraising, I'm doing human resources and stuff. Is there a bottom line benefit to acting like a publisher? Do I really have to add this to my plate? And I would say yes. And I want to point you to a couple examples to prove this point. The National Audubon Society in the past few years has grown its social media following from just 35,000 people across all its profiles in 2014, and now in 2017 they have over 1 million followers across all their social media properties, and they're raising an additional $25 million a year by acting like a publisher. All right. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You're thinking, Joe, that's great, but that's National Audubon Society. They've been around for 100 years. You know, how are we going to compete with them? They have resources that we don't have. Well, take another example here. This is an organization that I think is probably like a $250,000 organization. Healthy Kids Running Series found that they raised 50% more and had 50% more traffic to their site thanks to social media, to email marketing, and regular blogging. So it works for big organizations and it works for small organizations. And I know some of you are out there saying to yourself, Joe, I'm not even a $250,000 organization. I'm a super small one-person operation. Well, take this example of Mark Horvath. Mark Horvath runs a great organization called InvisiblePeople.tv. And Mark focuses on one content asset, video. He tells the story of people on the streets through through a lens and audio. And Mark has national partnerships with Virgin Atlantic, Ford Truck, and Hainsock. So he's done an incredible job leveraging those assets. So if you can do anything, you want to act like a publisher. But here's part of the problem as organizations is that we're not even doing a good job responding to people on our social media sites. So look at this in the lower right-hand corner here. 91% of nonprofits don't respond to questions and comments that people have on their Facebook page about a donation. So someone has actually typed something on your page about a donation they made and you're not responding to them. And I get this all the time. All the time I talk to social media managers at nonprofits and ask them questions and, look for their feedback on different things. And it's crickets. I do not understand what they're using social media for. So at the very least, we need to take up our game in terms of answering people's questions. Now, this is a basic framework that I have here in terms of how you should act like a publisher. What I would encourage you to do is start on the far left-hand side by picking a significant content asset, like a blog or like a vlog, which is a video blog, or a podcast. Some organizations are doing some really interesting things with podcasting. I've even seen organizations, small organizations, use their Facebook page really well. You would combine that with email marketing and then pick one social media platform to focus on. So you want to have something on your site, you want to do email marketing, and then you want to pick one social media site. Once you master that social media site, you're welcome to move on to a second social media site. But the idea here is maybe you do a podcast, you combine that with email marketing, and maybe you focus on Twitter. All right. So that is the basic framework for a publisher. And it's going to be different for all of us in terms of what we do. But one of the things I bet you're all going to be doing on your site, or what you all should be doing, is creating powerful images, whether you're editing images, adding text to them, overlaying different things. Here's a great tool alert for you. And some of you may be familiar of it already with Canva, C-A-N-V-A. Canva is a way to do all your images. If you're interested in creating a presentation or a Twitter post or an infographic, you can use Canva. They have a lot of free tools on Canva. I actually use the paid version, which is nothing. It's like $150 a year or something like that. But the free version is very good too, and there's lots of different things, and you can give your presentations and your Twitter profile and the images you use on your blog a very professional look. This whole presentation that I'm presenting to you today was done on Canva, and Donald thought it was great, so it must be a great presentation, right? So Canva is not only a place where you can edit and create images, but what I love about it too is it has something called a magic resize, all right? So say that you create something initially as a presentation page, just like I'm showing you right now, right? Was it 8.5 by 11? And if you want to turn this into, say, an image for your blog site, all you have to use is the magic resize button on Canva, and you can do that automatically. I mean, it's fantastic. So it has a lot of great tools. And like I said, many of the functionalities on Canva are completely free. So our second point, after focusing on businesses, is to act like a publisher. Now, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to dig down a little bit more in terms of of becoming a publisher and say that you need to make email a priority. Now, there are multiple reasons why you need to focus on email. It's a one-to-one connection with people. You own the list. You're not a victim to Facebook's algorithm or anything like that. But one of the things I always like to point out to people about email is that people read their email. It doesn't matter whether you're a baby boomer, a Gen X, or the newest generation, Gen Z. We're actually seeing Gen Z using email more with each other, okay? So this is only going to increase, and people are going to be using their email more than ever. So this is a very strategic platform that you should be focusing on. And two great examples of email newsletters that I think you should go and sign up for right now is, first of all, Mount Washington's Mount Vernon. They do a fantastic job with their email newsletter and all the other email communications that they'll send you. And the Minnesota Council of Nonprofits. is another great example of an email newsletter that's sent to people. And these things on a regular basis are sent weekly, not monthly, not quarterly, not twice a year, but weekly, so that you make an appointment with people. And some of the best practices I have for email marketing, it's really important to make an appointment with your audience. I've been sending out a regular email to my audience on Wednesday morning for years. You can get it today. You know, like I said, sign up for my newsletter. I'll send you my book. You'll get my newsletter. You can unsubscribe anytime you want, but I make that appointment with my audience every Wednesday morning, and you should too. Once a week, make an appointment with your audience. If you can't start out once a week, do it once a month or once a quarter or 2 times a year, but start somewhere and work your way down. Write this for your audience. Don't make it about you. Make it about the people you're working with. Highlight your supporters and your donors. And focus on growing your list, all the different things. If you go to my Twitter profile right now, you can see I got something there. Get the best cause marketing newsletter out there. Sign up for mine at Selfish Giving. And if you get an email from me, it says right on the bottom, sign up for the best cause marketing newsletter in the world, right? So grow that list in as many ways as you can, because having someone's email address is like gold. And then prune that list too. Just don't let it get out of control. Take people off it from time to time and edit that list. Learn from your analytics. Look at what people are opening, right? So that you can better determine the types of content that they want to see from you. And one of the things I think is really important is fancy isn't necessary with newsletters. I showed you a couple fancy newsletters a slide ago, but a lot of people are just using straight text. As a matter of fact, some of the most reputable people in the field that I really admire use straight text emails because they feel like they get through more than anything else. They don't end up in a spam filter. And finally, consider curation, okay? Curation is bringing a bunch of things that have already been written or done into one place, and you act as like an editor. If you want to see an example of a curated newsletter, again, my newsletter that goes out Wednesday morning is an example of curation. I take the best of what I found on the web, and I put it in my newsletter. And I think this is a tremendous opportunity for nonprofits to use curation. So take advantage of that. Now, 2 tool alerts for you on email marketing. First of all, you may be thinking to yourself, gee, Joe, now not only are you telling me to become a publisher, but now I got to spend some money getting into email marketing. The good news is you can get MailChimp for free. It takes up to 2,000 subscribers for free. And I want to tell you something now, especially for those small organizations on the line. If you do a good job pruning your email list, there's no reason why you can't have a good, functional, effective, successful newsletter with fewer than 2,000 people. Because in most instances, people just have lists that are too big and the people aren't responding, they're bouncing back to you. Focus on having a good, strong list. You can go to MailChimp right now, sign up for their program, and they'll give you the first 2,000 emails for free. And like I said, for many small organizations, that's more than enough. The other tool alert I would point you to is it's very important to get people to sign up for your newsletter or sign up for your emails. So you have to have what's called a pop-up. You can see on my site I have something called a welcome mat. And I actually took this from a site called lovenotlost.org. And there's also an example of a pop-up. And there are 2 places that you can go, and I think they both have free versions that you can test with. But sumo.com is a great place to get a pop-up for your website, or wisepop.com. Both sites, I have used them. I both have enjoyed their services. And I know what you're thinking right now. Joe, I hate pop-ups. I do too. But the fact is, pop-ups work. People will sign up for your emails and your newsletter because of pop-ups. You have to use them. It's required. Okay, so we talked about becoming a publisher. We drilled down a little bit more with email marketing. And one of the things I think is really important in 2018 is to adopt a mobile mindset. All right, that all of us have to realize that the mobile apocalypse is here. right? And we know this because we see refugees showing up in foreign shores, like in Greece. They have nothing, but they have phones. We know this from my friend again, Mark Forbath, who works with the homeless. He goes to these shanty towns and he's talking to people, and they say, "Hey, are you on Facebook?" And they pull out their phones. Everyone has a phone. And we know that in places like London, they've actually begun wrapping poles because people are on their phones all the time. And I know many of you, 90% of the people under the age of 30 sleep with their phones. And I want to tell you right now, when you're shaking your head saying, "I don't sleep with my phone," if you have your phone beside you on your nightstand, you are sleeping with your phone. So more of us are doing it than we all think, right? And what we're seeing is organizations like Monterey Bay Aquarium, Brooklyn Museum, and Habitat for Humanity that I mentioned earlier. They're all getting really savvy on how to use mobile, because one of the things that you have to accept is that mobile is the first screen. That is what people are looking at. Everything they get is going through their phones. And what I encourage all of you to do, and I realize in many instances, we're not dealing with sophisticated organizations that have lots of resources or assets. But one of the things I would really encourage you to do is I want you, from this point forward, anything you send out to your supporters, I want you to look at and see what that looks like on your phone and other phones. If you work with other people in your office and they have different types of phones, check and see how it looks, because that's the thing that you need to be thinking about. Are you putting too many photos in your email so that it's not rendering correctly on a mobile device? Is your website mobile responsive so that people don't have to pinch and stretch to see it? So these are the types of things that we need to be cognizant about. So whenever I'm sending out a newsletter to people, I'm always looking at how it looks on my laptop, and then I'm looking at how it looks on my phone. It's very, very important. And a tool alert that I think is really important, and I actually just wrote about something on this subject on my blog, because I'm doing this like 31-day writing challenge on my blog, is what we call smart speakers or Siri or voice recognition. Is one of the things that every organization needs to be doing. And I'm thinking about this because I just added a smart speaker to my own home. I actually bought a Google Home device, so now I can ask things like, "Hey, Google, when was the War of 1812?" And it will give me a response. Or I can ask it about the weather or what the final score of the Patriots game was this past weekend. By the way, we beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, which was great. And but the important thing to remember about these things is that these types of tools and resources are becoming omnipresent in people's homes. And what I encourage you all to do for your organizations is, if you ask a smart speaker about your organization, what does it say back to you? All right. And one of the things I would really encourage you to do too is ask a young person who are much more adept and familiar to talking to these devices than we are. I'm a Gen Xer myself, but ask a millennial, ask a Gen Z to talk these things. They're much better at asking questions that get answered. Do you get feedback from these devices that explain what your organization's about? And here is the one thing all of you can do to address this issue. On your website, the very next page that you should create should be a frequently asked questions page on your website that addresses major things about your organization, because this is exactly what these smart speakers are looking for when people ask questions about your organization. So take a step into the future, realize that voice technology, voice recognition is here and people are using it now. Is your organization being represented on these devices? I'm going to take a drink of water. Okay, so we got about 15 minutes left. We got the millennial first strategy. So we talked about mobile, and one of the things, and I know more than anything else I've said today, I'm probably going to get some pushback on this recommendation, but we have to focus on millennials. I don't care what your organization does. I don't care what you do. If you plan on being around the next decade or the next generation, you need to focus on millennials, and for a few powerful reasons. First, they're the biggest generation ever. Okay, so if you're not focused on millennials, you're not giving enough attention and you're not future-proofing your organization. The fact is, too, that most of the spending power with millennials will be with millennials by 2020, even more so by 2025, obviously, but we're talking about 1.4 trillion in spending power. So not only is it the biggest audience, but it's also the biggest spending audience, the biggest donating audience. So you need to be active with this audience. And smart organizations are already doing this, like the National Park Foundation. One of the things that they realize is that they're having a real challenge in national parks getting young people there. Park rangers have a saying, there are two types of people in America's forests, newlyweds and nearly deads. So one of the things that they focused on is bringing more millennials into the crowd so that they can, into the national park so that they can experience what these parks are all about. And they have this great program. You can check it out on my site called Find Your Park. We actually did an interview with them in Colombia, but they brought a bunch of influential millennials into the forest so that they could talk to them, but they're very focused on that audience. Another thing that you need to remember about millennials that's really important is they are very influential with one another. So even if you don't agree that millennials are making donations, one of the things that you have to realize is that your average millennial has a lot of influence, not only over each other, but over other generations too. And I mean, we see this in the workplace now, and this is why we see places like the United Way, is that people are not so top down anymore. They're not following the lead of their boss. They're following the lead of the friends and the people that they're talking to on social media. And this is particularly relevant and important with millennials. And one of the things I'll really mention too is if you're like me and believe that crowdfunding is a really important part of the nonprofit's future, that's what millennials are all about. So even if you say, well, millennials don't give a lot of money, the money that they are giving is coming through crowdfunding. So you need to focus on this audience because that's where the donations are headed in terms of how we'll be raising money. And how do you reach this audience? Well, millennials are really focused on cause. They're the ones that actually are putting a lot of pressure on businesses to act appropriately and to show that they care about good causes. Millennials are the most well-educated generation ever, okay, in terms of college grads and their skills, etc. And also, if you have the ability with your organization, try to find ways to be funny, to be humorous. That's how you can really bring in this organization. And one of the things I would emphasize too as a key platform that you should focus on for millennials is Instagram. It's actually a site that I don't use a lot. I focus a lot on, as you saw in the beginning, on Pinterest and Twitter, but it's a very powerful platform. And a tool alert here is a company called Perpix. And they have done a great job in working with companies, sororities and fraternities and other youth-related organizations and nonprofit organizations. So what they do is they work with companies to identify a younger audience that they can work with that wants to donate money to a place like the Children's Miracle Network. So in this particular case, they worked with Phi which I believe is the University of South Carolina. And what they did was the company donated every time they got a like on this particular picture and on Instagram, and all the money went to Children's Miracle Network. So what I would really check out Perpic about is I think nonprofits have the ability, first of all, you may have a company that's interested in targeting youth, and you could work with Perpix in terms of identifying one of those organizations, or maybe you are already working with a fraternity or a sorority or another youth-related organization, and together you could identify a company that might be willing to underwrite and donate the money in exchange for the likes and such. But Instagram, as many of you know better than I do, is a very powerful platform, and I've just been kind of exploring Perpix, and I've gotten to know a little bit the people there, and I've been really impressed by what they're trying to do, because I think there's a huge opportunity with Instagram, but a lot of people haven't cracked that nut in terms of how to raise money with it. Now, the final skill that I'm going to be talking about here is to know your influencers. And influencers are really important to an organization. And what I often think about this is that this is the fire this is like the match that could ignite your organization in terms of getting people. So we all want to be bringing more people into our organization, signing more people up for our emails, using mobile, targeting millennials, but we also want to follow those people with large followings. And that's how I define a digital influencer, is an individual or an entity that consumers follow digitally and socially, but they don't necessarily interact with these people offline. Now, we all know the celebrity influencers, right? J.J. Watt, he raised a ton of money down in Houston after the hurricane. Someone like Bono from U2 has done an incredible job with Product Red. And Angelina Jolie, she's done some incredible stuff. I think she works with the United Nations and UNICEF and those types of organizations. But, what I'm really talking about here is I'm not talking about these influencers with huge followings. I'm talking about people, what we call micro-influencers. And these are people that have a following of 1,000 to $100,000. I would even say 1,000 to 10,000. All right. So, we're looking at these Facebook pages or these Instagram pages, and people have like thousands of followers. And you could be putting these people to work for your organization. And micro influencers are big business. We actually just did an interview on Cause Talk Radio where we talked to Petco, and they have a new app called Heads and Tails. And what they're doing is they're encouraging people to post cute selfies of their animals. And if you get, what is it? I think it's if you get 100 likes on your picture, they're giving you a $25 gift card to Petco, and then they're donating $25 to their foundation. And, their foundation does great work with animals in the community. But it's just an example of a company that's really focused on these micro influencers. And think about it, there's a huge opportunity with them because there's lots of people with that type of following, 1,000 to 10,000 people. And there's not the liability, too, of working with a celebrity, which is sometimes tough. So what I would really encourage you to do in terms of tips, in terms of influencers, is, first of all, you can't find influencers if you don't have a social media presence, right? Because this is how you're going to identify those people as they stop following you, as they start engaging with your organization. And you want to be identifying your influencers. And I have a tool tip in a minute that's going to help you do that. And then finally, make it easy for them to take action. So once you identify these influencers, find a way that you can easily work with them. I love this example from the Best Friends Animal Society. Now get this, what they did was they looked at people that had large followings on social media sites, okay, that followed them. And they went to these people and they said, hey, when your birthday comes up, how about instead of getting presents, you donate up to $100 for every like you get of your pet with a potty hat on or their birthday outfit or whatever, right? And so this program took off. So people were saying, hey, every like I get on this picture up to 100, I'm going to donate $1 each for, and then you're welcome to make your own donations. And it was just a really successful program, and it was an easy way for people to get involved. Now think about you doing this with your own organization, you identifying influencers that you could put to work for your organization in an easy and effective way. And again, this happened on Instagram. Now you're probably saying to yourself, well, Joe, how do I identify my influencers? Well, there's some manual work that you can do this in terms of as people follow you on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, you can check out their followings to see if they have big followings. But one of the sites that I would really suggest that you go to is BuzzSumo. And BuzzSumo has a lot of great things. It does a lot of great things. But one of the things I really like about it is you can identify influencers. So, for example, if I went in and typed Twitter marketing, it gave me all the influencers that I could target. So think about your organization. You could go into BuzzSumo, type in what type of organization you are, and then you could bring up a list of people that are influential in that field that you could target. It's a great idea. The challenge with BuzzSumo is it's not cheap. It's like $100 a month or something like that. But here's the thing with BuzzSumo. It's free for the first 2 weeks. Yes, you will have to enter your credit card, But I would argue within that first 2 weeks, you could probably do a ton of research to figure out who your influences are. And then at the end of that 2 weeks, you could decide whether you want to invest in this for your organization. First of all, folks, I think it's a great service. I think it's worth the money. But I do want to say there is a free version that you can take advantage of for a couple weeks, and it's a great way to do research for your organization and to find those influencers. All right, so we're coming close to the end here. What I want to emphasize in terms of skills that we talked about today: focus on businesses, real opportunity with businesses, and I gave you some great assets that you could take advantage of, including my book. You want to be acting like a publisher, which is really important, and drilling down on that, I think you really need to make email a priority in your organization because of that one-to-one connection with people, because you own someone's address, because everyone reads their email, all these different reasons. We have to, in 2018, as organizations, adopt a mobile mindset, right? See everything through mobile. That is the first screen. We have to have a millennial first strategy because that is the future of our organization. And even if you're catering to older people, you know, millennials are the ones that are going to support it. And remember, the oldest millennials aren't that young now. They're, you know what, they're over 40. They're 40 years old. If you think of people from 1980, right? So we were looking at, like, you know, it depends on the range that you're looking at for how old millennials are. But generally, you know, it's like 1980 to 2000, I think, is the millennial range. So think about that. The oldest millennial is 37, 38 years old. And then finally, know your influencers when it comes to skills. And then all the tools that we have, right? Fundraising with businesses, Pinterest, Double the Donation, Canva, MailChimp, Sumo, WisePop, Smart Speakers, Perpix, BuzzSumo, all these different tools. So I hope this has been helpful to you. One of the things I want to emphasize before I go is, again, visit my blog, selfishgiving.com, sign up for the newsletter. I'll send you my book. Check out Cause Talk Radio. And if you have any questions about what I talked about today that you don't get answered in the next 5 minutes, don't be afraid to drop me an email, and I'm more than happy to answer that. And with that said, thank you very much for your attention today. Thank you again, Wild Apricot, for having me here. And Donald, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Let me just switch it back over to my screen. Just give me 1 sec. Oh, sorry, my mic was down. Hi, thank you very much, Joe.
Sure.
Switch it back over to me. Thank you. Okay, now we're really close to the top of the hour, and there were some questions. So I'm going to tell people how we can carry on the conversation, but maybe very briefly you could take a live question here. Here's one that someone's saying they're in the board of a national organization, and while there are a few relevant corporate headquarters where I live, in their words, there are a lot more that I would like to approach but don't have a personal connection to. Any suggestions? If you maybe 30 seconds on that, and then
well, here's the thing too. If you don't have the connections, you have to build the connections, and the way you're going to do that is through content, through publishing, right? And this is where I think it's so powerful, Donald, to have that connection with people that you know, because if you call someone, and even if they're vaguely interested, if you don't have content associated with what you do, what good does it? Because you have no way of following up with that person or staying in touch with that person. So I would say if you're not dealing with people right in your bullseye, you have to create content and make a connection with those people that brings them into your organization. And that person too can email me. I can send you a couple articles on how to do that.
Thank you very much, Joe. And so a couple things I just want to make sure that I tell everybody. I want to remind you that we have recorded this. We'll share this with you because Joe ran through a lot of valuable stuff. In fact, you mentioned a lot of tools that we personally use here. So really appreciate that. Thanks, Joe. And then I want to say, as I said at the top, that if you're new to Wild Apricot, you have any questions, I'll pass it over to Rano, and I'll cover off some free resources and offers in just a moment before I do that. But if you're already familiar with Wild Apricot and you want to continue the conversation on today's topic, you've got more questions for Joe that we didn't get a chance to, well, there is a wonderful tool we call it Facebook, and we have a Facebook group. Rano is actually going to include the link in to that Facebook group. There you can join that if you like, if you participate in Facebook. Joe is a member, as well as a few thousand people and many of our experts that we work with on our blog and in webinars like we've done today. So stay tuned for me tagging you in a post, Joe, and you'll get alerted
Sure.
any questions. And then, so if you are new to Wild Apricot, before you jump over to Facebook, if that's what you want to do, I just want to let you know that you can find more free educational content on our academy. Rana will paste the link in to the academy in the chat, and that's where you can find more webinars, including recordings of all our past webinars. And Joe has done webinars with us before. You'll find Joe's other webinars. I also recommend you take a look at the resources and content on our blog and articles. There's lots of helpful content there about growing your membership, running successful events, recruiting volunteers, and of course today's topic, fundraising, and lots of other things that you'll find very helpful if you run a membership organization or a nonprofit. All of that content is free. It's there for you. Encourage you to take advantage of it. And if you are running a membership organization, I want to lastly mention, whether that's a nonprofit, an association, or a club, or any type of organization, you're all very welcome to try our software at no cost for 30 days. So feel free to take advantage of this free opportunity, especially if you're looking for ways to automate a lot of the tasks that consume your life. Joe talked about tools that help you do things and save time. And of course, Wild Apricot is a tool that over 20,000 organizations use. Rana will paste a link in the chat window for that. You can get your free trial if you want to get going on that. By all means, there's the link. That'll take you to our website. You can enter your email, your name, your organization name, and you're off to the races. As well, if you want to receive a free call from one of our coaches, just type your phone number into the chat, and I'll make sure that one of our coaches gets in touch with you. So we just hit 3 o'clock. I'm going to pass it over to Rano now. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. And of course, we're about to jump into the holidays. So I wish everybody a happy, healthy, prosperous holiday. Hope you get a lot of time with your families and friends.